So hello everyone. As I left off in the previous part, I would like to continue to talk to you about the advertising industry having its impact on the modern life. The advertising industry is built upon the subtle persuasion. It is important for you, the readers, to know, or for us the readers to know, that the unknown citizen possessing the phonograph, the radio, a car and a frigidaire, all this is based subtly if not wholly upon the advertising industry. This advertising industry is built upon the subtle persuasion that as a citizen one needs whatever product they are selling. However, it is often the case that one does not require that product in any real sense at all. By calling such commonplace institutions into question, the poet encourages the reader to question his or her own role in society. Yes, we do not at first connect with the poem, we do not at first connect with the speaker or the unknown citizen, but slowly as we move, as we go deep down into the poem, we realize that we question ourselves about our own role in the society and ask if we are not unlike the unknown citizen in some way, isn't it? We ask that, are we any different? Maybe we do not read the product, but it is the advertisement that has played an important role, and we try to grab it at once so that we can conform to the standards of the modern man. Okay, now let's move on to the next lines. He was married and added 5 children to the population, which our eugenist says that was the right number for a parent of his generation, and our teachers report that he never interfered with their children. Was he free? Was he happy? The question is absurd. Had anything been wrong, we should certainly have heard. Yes, the welfare of the person who ultimately constitutes the state, his well-being is something, asking about his well-being is something that is immensely absurd. As I will explain in the following lines, that as far as his private life was concerned, he was happily married and produced 5 children as per the right requirement of the eugenics department, another department which even controlled his personal life, which marked the personal life, as we see in the modern days also. Similarly, the teachers of his children confirmed that as a parent he gave freedom of choice to his children and never interfered with their career or their career development. So it is important for us to know that what exactly or how exactly this person behaved. He everywhere he is just conforming, everywhere, whether it is again the eugenics department, he is just abiding by the new rules and regulations. He held the proper opinions, the state machinery held the proper opinions about him, the public opinions department held proper opinion about him, the eugenics department, the teacher of his children, everyone held proper opinion to him. And this kind of the state vigilance, this kind of the state's panoptic gaze on public responses is something that is not uncommon during the chaotic period of the early 20th century that was stricken with war and economic crisis. The unknown citizen, in fact, is a great sacrifice to this new emerging socialism. But without much dwelling on these few lines, let's move on to the final 2 lines, the couplet, which is immensely important. In these final lines, Auden poses the epic question. Yes, it is indeed epic. Poses an epic question to the unknown citizen's complete submission to the state. Auden asks, did this citizen know and feel freedom? Was he happy in his life, in carrying out everything without any remorse or reservations? In the absence of any reports from the state, Auden ironically concludes that perhaps he was free and happy. Yes, at first it may seem to us, the readers, that Auden is probably aiming at leaving an open-ended question, but then he answers the question himself that yes, probably according to the state data, the state machinery's data, probably everything was normal. Otherwise, if anything was unusual, anything was absurd, then we would have heard about it. The important word here is absurd, as I feel that the life of the modern man in fact is absurd. We do not actually abide by what we think is important for our values. We do not abide by the fact that we ought to express our opinions, we ought to voice our opinions. Whatever the mechanism is, wherever the flow goes, whatever will be, we will be benefiting from it, we slowly and steadily go by it without thinking much. It is a final, this concluding couplet is a final decree on the paradox of individualism and citizenship. Surprisingly, we do not have any state report on whether he was free and happy, but from the reports that we all have gathered that suggests his physical activity, but none on his psychology or inner self, we probably assume that he was fit and fine, where the importance of the psychology, the importance of his mind is not is not of any importance, and that is what makes it more absurd, where physicality is given importance but not the inner self, which which plays an important role in the well-being of the outer body or the physicality. We never come to read about his perspectives, but only the state's representation of it. And that is the reason why Auden concludes with a very satirical statement: had anything been wrong, we would certainly have known. If there was anything special about it, we would definitely have known. Because so many institutions working for it, so many institutions working to monitor his public and private functioning of his life, we would surely have got to know about something that is happening in his life, isn't it? Few things that I would like to tell you before I conclude the poem regarding the significance of the title is that the title of Auden's poem parodies this concept, this unknown concept. Thus, the unknown citizen means the ordinary average citizen in the modern industrialized urban society. He has no individuality and identity. He has no desire for self-assertion, and he likes to remain unknown and be controlled by the state mechanism. At the end of the poem, the poet asks two questions, and these two questions again in turn draw our attention to the question of freedom and happiness. It draws the question to our existence, that what actually we are or where actually we are heading to. And ironically, the poet suggests that modern man is like a slave to his routine, and he is capable of understanding any concepts like freedom and happiness. For that reason, probably it is absurd to ask him or think about his happiness or freedom. In the poem, this unknown citizen, it is a bitter attack on the modern society's indifference to the social institution, the rising new age socialism, the individuality and the identity. The only way for any individual to survive in a regimented society was to conform, as we find it repeatedly mentioned in the poem, and by the end of the poem it is something like it occurs automatically to our mind. And when one thing that we want to talk about the unknown citizen, the word that pops out of our mouth is the word conform. It is obey and live in a perpetual mental slavery. Such creative is this unknown citizen, who is creative indeed, as ironically said by the poet, who is utterly devoid of any urge for self-assertion. Such a modern man is a slave to the routine. He is capable of understanding these concepts. Now I am going to point out to you some of the symbolism and the irony to help you understand the poem in a better way before I draw the end to the poem. This entire poem is narrated from the perspective of the state, as you understand, and it is itself in a very sarcastic tone. Rather than from that direct critic of the state, it is very important to note that there is no solution offered to the problem that is described here. The poet, the speaker who narrates the unknown citizen as someone who is a slave, or as someone who is a saint, because he has lived a life totally devoted not to God but to the greater community. He has as if worshipped the greater community. Nowhere in the most unpoetic of the poems, as if we go by the standards or the norms, again conforming to the norms of the poetic standards, this poem can be called some most unpoetic. There is any reference to the matters of philosophy, creativity, noteworthiness, or individuality. The unknown citizen consumes without complaint. He disappears at poem's conclusion without having developed any height, weight, skin color, hobby, or any other feature that provides the readers with the means to form a mental picture of any sort. Subsequently, he is attributed with the certificates of conduct. That saint is categorized as an old-fashioned word, though in the modern times he totally justifies the meaning of that word. Then his wife, mentioned to the wife and children, are the images of the stereotypical family living in a suburban life, living in a suburban society. This indicates that he had no real say in his society, as the eugenics confirmed that it was well according to the standard. He abided by that. He also owned the necessities of the modern man that one should own, as it was an indicator that he was also slave to the popular consumer ones. And again, the use of the words like he pronoun, that is he, is symptomatic and symbolic, because this suggests that he is any average citizen who is having a strong sense of civil duty. He served the greater community while properly identifying with the moral obligations and patriotic duty. He went for peace until the day he retired. Then again he cured. Then we have mention of his policies that was mentioned, his children, he was married. These are very important about how the state machinery went deep down to interfere in his life. And obviously the important questions are the rhetorical questions that are asked at the end. The customs of the society that are made for man. Man is not made for the customs of the society, and the state is formed for man. Man is not formed for the state. As I draw to the conclusion, this is the final thing that I would like to say, that was he free? Was he happy? This happiness and freedom are very individual and personal choices, and we are talking about these personal and individual choices about a man who did not throughout the poem assert his individuality or identity in any sense. Nevertheless, the state chooses to answer these significant questions too, as the speaker himself or herself does it. These last two questions draw the responder's attention to the question of the freedom and happiness. No government statistic can analyze that. Yes, the government statistics can hold records of the numbers, the number of days he worked, the number of days he went to war, about the modern equipments or appliances that he held, the number of children he had, which school he sent his children, what were their records, whether he went to the pub, whether he had a drink with his friend, whether he took the newspaper daily. All these things are mentioned in his records just by on the basis of some numbers. But happiness, freedom, care, identity, individuality, these are not asserted throughout the poem, as the government official or the government machinery has finally or ultimately failed in asserting the fact that its aim for a more arising or its arousing as a modern welfare state has finally failed. It is nowhere near achieving it, because happiness, individuality is nowhere mentioned. It does not take care of it in any way. Hopefully you will like this video once again, because this video is in 3 parts. The links I have mentioned in the description and will also be mentioned in the comment section. Hopefully you will like it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned to this channel, One Stop All Poetry Solution. And the next video is coming soon. If you haven't subscribed yet, do subscribe, because you cannot afford to miss on the important contents that are coming up soon. Thank you for watching this video.